I've been testing the NewView Hunting 48 megapixel 4K trail camera. I've been testing things like battery life, trigger speed, and trigger distance. Does it make a difference if I operate the camera on 4K video versus 1080p versus 720, and much more testing. In the end, I'll give you the pros and cons as I see it after using this camera to capture more than 1,000 videos. Today it's my review of the NewView Hunting T5 trail camera. The NewView Hunting trail camera is a 4K 48 megapixel trail camera with a CMOS sensor. It is a wide-angle camera and it has a 120-degree lens. The camera comes with a 64 gig micro SD card, but can support cards up to 256 gigs. The camera is advertised as having a 0.2 second trigger speed. It operates on either 4 or 8 AA batteries. Inside the camera there is a large display screen, which is very useful to navigate through the settings and to customize this camera to your exact needs. This display screen can also be used for playback of your photos and videos. Of course, included with this camera is a tree strap, but they also include an optional 1/4-20 mount. The camera does have an external power port, and that is 6 volts. The camera is considered no glow, which means the nighttime illumination for your photos and videos is 940 nm. The camera is advertised as having a 80-foot detection range during the daytime and 65-foot detection range at night. One of the most important things about operating a trail camera is battery life. Now, I already mentioned this camera can be operated on either 4 batteries or 8 AA batteries. The first shipment of cameras I received, I loaded up the camera with my lithium batteries like I do all of my other cameras, and the camera would not turn on. After some investigation, it turns out the camera was going into over voltage protection, and it would not turn on because the lithium batteries was supplying too much power. So I resorted to 8 alkaline batteries. The camera started right up and was ready to go. I placed the camera in a high traffic area to see how many 20-second videos the 8 alkaline batteries could take before the batteries were dead. I let the camera operate for several weeks, and after 2 card checks, I had over 1,064 20-second videos on those 8 alkaline batteries. At that point, I considered the batteries dead because the nighttime videos were severely shortened. Although I had the camera set on 20-second videos, the nighttime videos were erratic and would only be 2 or 3 seconds long, meaning there wasn't enough voltage in the batteries to do the nighttime IR. Over 1,060 videos on 8 alkaline batteries. Now, as an update, since that original shipment of cameras, NewView Hunting has updated their program and their over voltage parameters inside their cameras, and they will now operate on lithium batteries. In fact, I did test one of the newest cameras, and it was able to operate on lithium batteries. Anytime I have the choice to use lithium batteries over alkalines in my trail cameras, I'm always going to opt for the lithium because of their superior performance. Next, I wanted to test the PIR sensor. I set up 3 cones, one at 20 feet, one at 40 feet, and one at 80 feet away from the trail camera. My test was as simple as walking at each of those distances to see if the PIR sensor picked me up and where in the frame was I at when the camera first detected motion. Here was the 20 feet cone test. The 40 feet cone test, and lastly the 80-foot cone test. I again repeated this test in photo mode. I put the camera on 3 photo bursts. Here's the 20-foot walk, the 40-foot walk, and the 80-foot walk. Next, I wanted to test the video capabilities of this camera. It's advertised as having 4K video, but it also gives you the option of 1080p and 720. In this test, I set up 3 identical cameras side by side, one in 4K, one in 1080p, and one in 720. In this test, all 3 cameras would experience the exact same conditions at the exact same time. I wanted to see if there was a noticeable difference between the 4K, 1080p, and 720 videos. So I want to give some of my thoughts on the test that I performed. I thought the camera performed well in the PIR triggering test. As you saw when it was on video mode, it caught me right as I entered into the frame on the 20, 40, and 80 foot range. Now it was a bit different story on the picture mode. I put it into 3 photo bursts, and at the closest range of 20 feet, the first 2 camera triggerings I was not in frame, but only on that 3rd picture. Now when you moved out to the 40 and 80 foot range, it captured me with all 3 pictures. Now I do want to mention that I had the side PIR sensor turned on for all of my testing. I think if you would turn those side PIR sensors off, it would do a better job at closer range. It would wait until you're within frame before it took pictures, but I'm afraid you may suffer at longer distances. So as you see, there's no perfect setup. There's a little bit of give and take. And if you're setting your camera up specifically for close objects, you may want to consider turning those side PIR sensors off, but you will possibly give up some trigger speed at longer distances if those side PIR sensors off. If you'll remember, at that 40 and 80 foot range, even on picture mode, I was almost at the cones before the first picture was ever taken. Now my thoughts on the difference in the video quality from 4K to 1080p to 720. Well, there was a dramatic difference in my opinion from the 720 up to the 1080. Now in my opinion, there was not as much of a difference between the 1080p and 4K video. Now I know because of advertising hype, everybody wants to say that their camera is 4K, but again, in my opinion, this camera does every bit as good in 1080p. In fact, in my opinion, it does better in 1080p because the 1080p videos were shot in 30 frames per second. When you switch the camera to 4K, it automatically drops that frame rate to 10 frames per second. That's a dramatic difference from 10 frames a second on the 4K to 30 frames per second. Now, what does that mean? Well, the more frames per second typically means the smoother the video, and this really can come into play at nighttime. So again, in my opinion, I would forget about the 4K and operate these cameras in 1080p if you want the best video. Well, I'll show you more sample photos and videos both daytime and nighttime during my final thoughts. But right now it is time where I'll give you my final thoughts, the pros and cons as I see it, after actually using these cameras to capture more than 2,000 photos and videos here in my farm. I'm going to start off the pros. I thought the camera's photo and video quality were good. Now keep in mind, this is a standard trail camera, not a cellular trail camera. It's actually more of a budget-friendly camera. At the time of this filming, I think the camera is a little bit less than $70. And in that price range, this camera performed well. The nighttime photos and videos had good illumination, in my opinion. Now this is a 940 no-glow camera, and typically a no-glow camera does not perform quite as well at night as what a low-glow 850 camera was. With that said, I thought this camera did well even at nighttime. Another positive, in my opinion, is the camera's setup and menu options. As I already have mentioned, you have the option of turning those side PIR sensors on or off. You can select whether you want photo, video, or photo and video mode. This camera has time lapse, you can adjust the PIR sensitivity, and many more options. So for the amount of customization that's available with this camera, all of that is a thumbs up in my book. Another positive is the large display screen inside the camera that not only aids you in setting up that menu and going through the different settings, but you can also view back photos and videos right there on that screen. It's a colored LCD screen, Again, it's oversized, especially compared to a lot of cameras, and it works well. Another positive that I like about this camera is something I've never heard anybody else mention. It's the fact when you have the camera in test mode, not only can you go in and adjust the settings in the menu while you're in test mode, but if you close the lid and walk in front of your trail camera, it has several lights that come on the front. A green light means the center PIR sensor has detected motion, and any red light flashing is when the side PIR sensors detect motion. That means you can use these lights to set your camera in the perfect position. You can not only position your camera where you think the animals will be coming, if you walk down the trail, you can see when the side sensors detect you and when that center PIR sensor detects motion. So the green and red lights on the front of the camera are very helpful. The only thing I'll caution with that is don't forget to turn your camera from test to on when you leave. If you leave your camera in the test position, when you come back, you're going to be sorely disappointed because the camera will not have captured any activity and your batteries will be completely dead. So don't forget to turn your camera to the on position when you walk away from it for the final time. Now, are there any negatives or cons or things that I would change if I could? Well, several small things come to mind. One would be the mounting system, more specifically where you put the tree strap. Now, it comes with a tree strap, and by looking at the back of the camera, it would look like you have 3 different positions to put that tree strap, high, medium, or low. But in my opinion, this is way too chintzy. It's definitely going to be a breakage area. That entire bracket where the tree strap goes through is only held on by 4 small screws. Now, this design with the bracket that's held on by 4 very small screws have been around for years. In fact, I was reviewing cameras that looked nearly identical to this physically with that same bracket on the back years ago, 3-4 years ago. This looks identical, does not look upgraded whatsoever from those cameras years ago. And I have had experiences in the past where if an animal grabs a hold of the camera while it's strapped to the tree, those 4 screws will break right out of the back of the camera. In fact, the 1/4-20 mount on the bottom of the camera is also on this bracket, which again is only held by 4 small screws. Now, although none of my cameras that I used had any trouble, I had no breakage, I'm just speaking from past experiences with designs, or at least cameras that look like almost identical to this camera. So I have a bit of concern about that mounting system. Another negative, or at least room for improvement, would be the camera's audio. I did an audio test with the camera. I wanted to do an audio test from about 20 feet away from the trail camera. It's extremely windy out here today, but I wanted to do an audio test. And although the microphone does work, and if you look really closely at the front of the camera, there is a small hole where the microphone is placed behind, the audio is not great. Again, you can hear sound. You did hear me in the audio test. It's just not great audio. And I have found that good audio really brings your videos to life, so I highly value good audio on my trail cameras. Now, the last thing I'll mention is not really a negative. I would call it more of a neutral, and that is the fact that they changed from only being able to use alkalines to lithium. Now, that change is great. I appreciate the fact that they did an adjustment and now that I can use lithium. But even the newest cameras that were sent to me that could use lithium batteries still have the old manual that says do not use any other batteries except alkalines. So hopefully they'll get some of those details ironed out. I love the fact that all the newer cameras can use lithium batteries. Hopefully they can change their user's manual, get rid of the warning, and maybe fix some of the typos. So those were my thoughts on the T5, the new View Hunting Trail Camera. I'll be placing a link down in the description. It is an affiliate link, so if you do decide to make a purchase, I appreciate if you go through my link. I get a small commission, and it helps me continue to bring reviews just like this. If you have questions or comments, maybe something that I totally missed, please put that down in the comments section. I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.